Yes.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the regular meeting of the City Council of University City, Texas. It is Tuesday, May 3rd, believe it or not, 2022. I'll call the meeting to order now at 6:31 p.m. and call for a quorum check, please.
Mayor Williams.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Neville.
Here.
Councilmember Goolsby.
Here.
Councilmember Maxwell.
Here.
Councilmember Najarian.
Here.
Councilmember Shelby.
Here.
Councilmember Volle.
Here.
Quorum is present, we shall proceed. I will give the invocation this evening and lead us in the pledges as well, so whatever you will do. Heavenly Father, we come together tonight to ask for your guidance as we contemplate and make educated decisions on behalf of our citizens. And tonight, we also ask you to bestow a special blessing on departing Councilman Tom Maxwell, who has spent the last 12 years serving our city. We are most grateful for his demeanor, honesty, and steadfast dedication to serve with dignity and integrity. We thank you for giving staff and council the direction we have needed to help us our businesses and citizens cope with the oddities we've faced these past couple of years. Tom has played an integral role in how our city has dealt with the deep freezes and, of course, the pandemic. We have so much to be thankful for and to look forward to in the coming months. We can be thankful for a fine staff who work tirelessly to help our city prepare efficiently, and we can be thankful for this council who always have our citizens' best interests in mind. And we can be thankful for the many volunteers who serve selflessly on boards, commissions, and committees to help us meet the needs of our community. We ask that you inspire and instill in us and our citizens the kindness, thoughtfulness, and fairness we all deserve as we move forward, especially with the challenging budget process we face. And as always, Lord, we ask that you watch over our military men and women and protect them and their families as they serve around the globe to ensure our freedom in these troubled times. We especially ask that you look over and protect those brave people in the Ukraine. Our cup is overflowing with love for them and concern for their well-being. We ask this in your holy name. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor and the flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Well, that was really nice. Everybody. Appreciate it. Okay. The first item we have on the agenda this evening is a proclamation on Building Safety Month, and I'm going to pass each one of these whereas is going to be done by a member of council. And I'll close it, and then I'll present it to our building officer, our chief justice, Mr. Captain Redmond. So, Mr. Volle, you can start, ma'am.
Whereas the City of Universal City is committed to recognizing that our growth and strength depends on the safety and essential role our homes, buildings, and infrastructure play, both in everyday life and when disasters strike. And
whereas our confidence in the resilience of these buildings that make up our community is achieved through the devotion of vigilant guardians, building safety and fire prevention officials, architects, engineers, builders, tradespeople, design professionals, laborers, plumbers, and others in the construction industry who work year-round to ensure the safe construction of buildings. And
whereas these guardians are dedicated members of the International Code Council, a nonprofit that brings together local, state, territorial, tribal, and federal officials who are experts in the built environment to create and implement the highest quality code to protect us in the buildings where we live, learn, work, and play. And
whereas these modern building codes include safeguards to protect the public from hazards such as hurricanes, snowstorms, tornadoes, wildfires, wildland fires, floods, earthquakes, and whereas Building Safety Month is sponsored by the International Code Council to remind the public about the critical role of our community's largely unknown protectors of safety and public safety, our local code officials who assure us of safe, sustainable, affordable buildings that are essential to our prosperity. And
whereas Safety for All, Building Codes in Action, the theme for Building Safety Month 2022, encourage us all to raise awareness about planning for safe and sustainable construction, career opportunities in building safety, understanding disaster mitigation, energy conservation, and creating a safe and abundant water supply to all of our benefit. And whereas each year in observance of Building Safety Month, people all over the world are asked to consider the commitment to improve building safety, resilience, and economic investment at home and in the community, and to acknowledge the essential services provided to all of us by local and state building departments, fire prevention bureaus, and federal agencies in protecting lives and property.
Whereas each year in observance of Building Safety Month, people all over the world are asked to consider the commitment to improve building safety, resilience, and economic investment at home and in the community, and to acknowledge the essential service provided to all of us by local and state building departments, fire prevention bureaus, and federal agencies in protecting lives and property.
Now therefore, I, John Williams, Mayor of the City of Universal City, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2022 as Building Safety Month. Accordingly, I encourage our citizens to join with their communities in participation in Building Safety Month activities. And I'd like to present this to Jacqueline Redmond, ma'am. There's a lot of verbiage in here, but I think it really reflects the fact that some people have jobs that aren't really very fun to have in terms of how they are approached by other people. But in this case, Jacqueline does, I think, a phenomenal job for us in this community. I just want to present this proclamation to her so that it could be reflected that we really care about what you and others do for building safety. So thank you very much. All right, let's move on then to tab number 8, which is to consider the minutes of the Tuesday, April 19, 2022 City Council regular meeting. Move for approval. Motion made by Amendment Neville, as amended. Right. Mayor Pro Neville is our parliamentarian, and he is our corrections person for all these little changes we may need to make in it. So with his corrections, I think it would be perfect. I'll second. Second by Councilmember Maxwell. Any discussion by anyone? All right, first call for the vote, please.
Mayor Pro Neville.
Aye.
Councilmember Maxwell.
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby.
Aye.
Councilmember Najarian.
Aye.
Councilmember Shelby.
Aye.
Councilmember Volle.
Aye.
That motion passes. Now we'll proceed on now to our next item, which is citizens to be heard. It's provided for our citizens to address council on issues and concerns, as you can read up there. It's informative. No council discussion or action will be taken, and I ask you to please try to limit your comments to 3 minutes. We have a pretty good group that signed up this evening, so I hope we can respect that. I'm pretty lenient, but we'll see how we go for this evening. So first person that signed up this evening, Jenna Trujillo. Trujillo. You're on.
Okay, hello, my name is Jenna Trujillo, I'm 14, I live at 843 Ulysses, and last Saturday, April 30th, me and my team participated in Purple Stride, San Antonio, to walk to end Bexar cancer. If you want more info, go to pancan.org. I also want to thank the city for letting me have a day at the pumpkin patch, also thanking Four Kings Bakery for letting me have a lemonade stand at Cars and Cars. And to thank some Universal City businesses, you know, like Walmart, Four Kings, Craft Pudding, Shipley Donuts, Bill Miller, H-E-B, RBFCU, Lauren Sensi, Red Feather Healing, and Michelle Williams Photography, who donated to my raffle at the Pumpkin Patch. Also because of the community support, I placed third out of 731 participants in San Antonio, raising $5,149, and my team placed fourth out of 88 teams, raising $6,725. We couldn't have done it without your help, so thank you, and I would also like to thank Tom Maxwell for being a good councilman, supporting everything, and being a good friend. Also, cracking cheese jokes.
well? You've already signed up. Okay, all right. So then the next individual signed up this evening, you're good, or you want to?
I'm Devonna.
Devonna, yes.
Oh, sure.
Yes, come on.
Well, I'm Devonna Trujillo at 8438 Ulysses, and I want to echo her as a thank you to Regina. She's kind enough to let the nonprofit that we have so dear to our heart participate for proceeds to go to pancreatic cancer. And there's somebody in this room who support us, so thank you, whether it's to come to the Direct Buy Lemonade stand or the pumpkin patch. And they donate so graciously, so thank you for taking your time and supporting Jenna when she's able to do that. But I'm just here for a simple thank you for Tom, for being an outstanding steward to all citizens in Universal City by serving the City Council. I first met you in 2014. It was at the Universal Tree Lighting, and I don't know if it's because we were new, you're at so many things, you know so many people, but you came up, you introduced yourself, and you asked Jenna if she had talked to Santa Claus yet. This was our first event at UC after coming back from overseas. And then we're going to fast forward to the summer, we're at Moody's at the Park, there's Tom Maxwell. From my volunteering with several events and attending events, one thing that was constant, it's Tom Maxwell. You're always there, you're greeting, talking, participating, you're volunteering, or you're interacting with the kids. I was always amazed at how you did that with a full-time job and your family. I don't know how you found the time because it's hard for me. For some of us, family is everything, and I always appreciated how you took the time to make it a point to say hello to Jenna. And it's kind of funny, but it's not. But oh my goodness, I know, because I noticed that you probably took part in every one of our community drive-bys for the birthdays in the height of the pandemic. That must have been a feat in itself, because there were so many that year, and it meant a lot. If you can do these, they're small, but if you can do that, I know that you truly do care about and you love where you live. So Tom, I want to thank you with my whole heart for listening, always showing you care enough by being at so many community events. Loving the youth that are Universal City's next generation, contributing to making Universal City fabulous in so many ways, and lending a helping hand. Your council voice is surely going to be missed, but I'm so happy that you are still here and your smile will not be missed. I appreciate you dearly, and you know our next event is Saturday, so see you at the pancake breakfast. We'll try to get there early because I know that's usually when you're there, but so we'll be out there too to support the Firefighters Association. So. But thank you so much, Tom, for everything. And I mean, we have some good council city to represent us here every month, but out of all the constant things we've been to, you've always been there. The youth sports opening, you were there. So, but thank you. To be in the eyes of the youth, it does mean a lot because they're watching, and that's our next generation, y'all. They're the ones that's going to take our place. So, thank you.
Again, name and address for the record, please.
My name is Lori Putt, 114 Foxwell, Universal City. I will start out with Tom. I wasn't going to, but let's keep the momentum going. Mr. Mayor, your prayer said 90% of what I was going to say tonight. Thank you. And Jenna and Dee Dee, absolutely. First time I met Tom was at Snowfest. Had no idea who he was. He was standing about 50 feet away. He's going, and I'm thinking, who is this strange man? And I found out he's very strange. But he's constant. He is always there. If there's a storm, he's there. If there's a celebration, he's there. He's cleaning up. He's meeting people. I believe that Tom knows every business person in this city. He has welcomed them. And you will be missed tremendously. But we're looking forward to what's next. And we'll be talking to you again in a couple of years. We'll see what's next. So on behalf of everyone I know who could not be here, thank you from the bottom of our hearts for everything you've done. My second reason I'm here is because Randy will not toot his own horn. Oh, don't look so worried. So I got to go to the Parks and Rec Commission meeting, and several of the people here were at this meeting. And it was so enlightening. And I told them after the meeting that several years ago, we were there, I was there as Parks Partners, and he goes, here's my wish list. And he named off everything that he wanted to do. And he goes, don't know where I'm going to get the money, but this is my wish list. While we were sitting there that night, we're going check, 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 check. His wish list had been filled through his determination, through the Parks and Rec Commission. Chris England, thank you, and everyone else who's on it. All of Randy's wish list came true for the citizens of Universal City. How many parks, 7 parks in our little bitty town. So now we're talking about his new wish list. So I know budget season's coming up, just saying, let's continue to help Randy be successful by giving our families such wonderful parks. And thank you for supporting him. And thank you, Randy. We know it's a hard job.
Next individual signing up this evening is Ms. Ashton Bowman.
Well, I'm not here to spell the story. Sorry, guys. I could go line by line, code by code. However, everyone has already sent their research and their email, so I wanted to keep my statement real simple tonight. When it comes to building codes and fire codes, I basically just have one question. Why are we making stricter rules and giving the fire department and building codes full unlimited control? Meaning when the ICC says one thing, why are we removing certain parts and saying they need no reason whatsoever? Last meeting, the fire chief, when asked if he would do certain things, he said, no, I would never do that. If he's stating he would never do it, then why are we trying to change the ordinance from the ICC to give the fire station that capability? This is the police curfew, or this is the curfew rule all over again. The police chief said he would never stop a kid. Smartly, we amended the ordinance to remove something that was pointless, and the police chief said he would never do. Why can we not use the same logic with fire and building codes? If the fire chief said they won't do it, why is the ordinance going to be expanded to give them that option? What happens when you get one bad apple who hides behind the ordinances we gave them that give them absolute power? If they claim they wouldn't use it, then we should just amend the current option to make it more in line with the ICC. We are just asking to change out some words, giving absolute power and keeping the wording outlined with the ICC guidance. I believe we're in a push to bring more business to the city. It only takes rumors to circulate that we have ordinances that give officials the capability to harass business owners to make them think twice about coming to our city. And even if someone says, well, they never do it, they would still be able to reference the book of ordinances and say, well, they clearly have the option to do it if they wanted. So mine, to sum up real simple tonight, I'm just wondering why we're giving absolute power when they say they don't need it and we don't technically need it. So why not just change it to make sure they have to have a reason before we do things? That's it tonight. Thank you.
Next individual signing up this evening is Ms. Shelby Reynolds.
Hello, my name is Shelby Reynolds. I live at 103 Circle Drive, where I've lived for a little over 21 years. I've known Tom Maxwell more than half of that time. I think we're going on about 14 or 15 years. I met him through his wife, Cheryl, who I love dearly. And I don't know how I can follow some of these thank yous, except to say thank you for your service, all of you. Thank you for your 12 years. I know from sitting on the committee that I sit on, these are very thankless volunteer positions that people sit up here and the abuse that you take. My heart breaks for some of you. So Thank you, Tom, for your service. Thank you, Mayor, for your service. Thank you, all City Council, for your service.
Next individual is Mr. Richard Edwards.
Introduce it. Yeah, I would. We're not supposed to. Thank you.
My name is Richard Edwards, 209 Tree Lane. When I first moved here, I absolutely fell in love with the city. It reminded me of when I was a child. Kids play out in the yard, they ride their bikes up and down the street. It's peaceful. It's wholesome. And then the one day when I stumbled in to the council meeting about 6 months ago, if you remember, I said, we all look like a pretty good bunch. I thought, wow. Yeah, and my whole consideration really hasn't changed. If anything, it's been reinforced. You are a good bunch of people. I don't think anyone can question that. But there's been a puzzle, if you will, in my mind, because there are so many little things. For instance, I thought I needed to go through and I needed to read the entire city charter. This town is 5 square miles. Our city charter is 741 pages. That's a lot of laws, ordinances, and regulations. Why do we have so much micromanagement, if you will? I don't get it, because I don't see any one of you as being heavy-handed. I mean, it's, you know, like it wasn't fitting anything. Why is it if somebody wants to repair their fence or put a gazebo out in the backyard or replace their toilet in the bathroom, they have to seek permission in their own property? That's not freedom. But why is this going on when we have such good people on the council? Because the state grants Home Rule City so much power that all these ordinances and everything, they, over the years, have been put in place by the council. And then something was said. I was under the weather. I didn't come to the meeting last time, but I watched the video, and something was said at the end in somewhat of an emotional outburst, and it was like the missing piece to the puzzle. Okay? Before I say this, I want to ask every one of you whether you want to get angry with me, want to blow me off. It doesn't matter. It's not about me. I would ask that sometime in the next few days, you spend some time and contemplate, why did Richard Edwards say this? Because I'm not saying this to attack anybody. It's exactly what I think. Our council here, you good men and women, you do not, in my consideration, act fully as a representative body politic for Universal City. Your actions don't reflect that. What your actions reflect, and what was said in so many words the other night, is that it's your responsibility to make the right decisions that are best for the city. If the people were really involved, we would make the wrong decisions. So I guess we have all these policies, permits, ordinances, you name it, because as adult children, we need to be properly restrained, else we might hurt ourselves.
Mr. Edwards, you need to wrap it up, please.
Okay, I'm sorry. Last thing I want to say is this council is functioning not as a representative body of the people. It's functioning as an oligarchy. Please consider that and see why I said it. Thank you.
All right. Next individual signed up this evening is Linda Sefton.
Good evening, my name is Linda Sefton. I live at 205 Drury Lane. I'm also a precinct chairman. My precinct goes from Aviation to Kitty Hawk, Cibolo Creek to Pat Booker Road. And over the last few weeks, I've had several meetings with my precinct and other people living in Universal City. So I just wanted to pass on to you some of the concerns a lot of the citizens are having. The first thing is, I have 2 people from my precinct that have been block walking for various candidates, and they have connected with 650 households in the last few weeks. And the recurring theme they're hearing from residents is that people did not know there was a municipal election on the 7th of May. So I really encourage you all, I don't know how you can get the word out, but people need to know. They simply didn't know. When we gave them flowers and notified, that was the first they heard of it. And they were surprised. And people really do want to vote. So I think it's important that we have a high level of voter participation. Another thing that came up was the Acme building on Pat Hooper. People would like to know what is it that's going in there. And there was a general consensus is that whenever there's a building that's been bought, that's been redone, if there could be a sign or some kind of word so people kind of know what is it that is going to go in that space. People would like to know that. Another thing is people like to know is the EDC is only for new businesses or also for existing businesses. One of the residents had gone to Faux Bistro and was told by the owner that they have to shut down because of the rent that's gone up. And apparently they're saying that 2 other people renting in that same space are also closing because of the rent. So does the EDC, is that something that can help existing businesses? Especially since there's a lot of, with shutdowns and everything with COVID, a lot of businesses are kind of strapped. And rents are going up through no control of anybody. It's just happening. So do they qualify for help? That's something people would like to know. Last thing was the golf course. I was speaking to Paul and he suggested I go there. And the reason I haven't been there, even though I lived there for 5 years, is I didn't know how to get there. I just see this little sign on the Universal City Boulevard. It just says golf course and conference center. I see that sign, I don't think that's the place I want to go for happy hour. It just doesn't sound like some, I would really encourage you all against signage and notification so people know what it is. Another recurring theme was that a lot of residents did not know that the city owned the golf course. They were under the impression that it's open to the public, but it's somehow owned by Olympia Hills or HOA or something. They didn't know it was actually owned by the citizens. So anything that's going to be changing with this, and I would encourage that. I looked at the website. I was really not impressed with how they advertise the venue. You don't really see an overview of the rooms. And the way young people nowadays, and most people, they want to be able to see floor plan, what does the room look like, what arrangements. There wasn't a whole lot of that. So any of the changes that you all want to do, I would encourage you to make it open to the citizens, kind of like what we did at the round table, which was a really big success. Have something similar like that where people can give feedback on how we're going to use that space since we do own it. And since we own it, we want to make money and hopefully our property taxes can go down. So anyway, that's all I have. Thank you.
Next individual is Mr. Tom Anglin.
Give me a moment, Mr. Mayor.
Take your time.
The old war horse has a lower limb problem. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, staff, fellow voters, ladies and gentlemen. I am Tom England. I live at 607 Balboa Drive, Universal City, Texas, and I have since 1991. First, I thought it was first, I would like to thank the first speaker tonight under Citizens to Be Heard. It takes a lot of guts as a young teenager to get up and stand and talk in front of a lot of people. I commend her for her ability to do that. Secondly, on the agenda, if you want to know how the city building codes work, come to a planning and zoning meeting sometime. And good neighbors have good fences, and good fences make good neighbors. If you want to have a storage shed built right against your property line and it catch on fire and burn down your house, that's a good way to have it happen. That's why there's building codes and building inspectors. We had an issue come in front of planning or Board of Adjustment where there had been 3 additions added onto the home. None of the additions were done with building codes nor with permits. to include electrical, plumbing, and it was a second story and didn't have an engineering study of the foundation that would support the additional weight. We told the homeowner, sorry, you're going to have to tear all those additions down and start from the get-go. That's why we have building inspectors and building codes. Now, to get to the real reason I came here tonight, first I would like to thank Mr. Maxwell for his many years as a member of council and his dedicated service to the citizens of Universal City. Secondly, I commend the city employees that supported the community cleanup here. They were all very pleasant and exceptionally helpful. Thirdly, I have some comments on the mayoral and council members' election here in town. I see that Jack Finger has raised one of his fingers in our local race for offices. Mr. Finger is nothing more than a neo-Nazi, bigoted, and an anti-LGBTQ outsider who is a San Antonio Council gadfly who gets up at every city council meeting in San Antonio, and I mean every city council meeting, and talks about anything and everything, and has done so for the last several years. Anyone who accepts his endorsement for the position of mayor of Universal City is not, and I repeat, not, deserving of the position and should be ashamed. Also, I see that one of the candidates for council wants to do away with the Economic Development Corporation. Even though the property in Northlake on which this building sits was purchased from the IDC before the name was changed to the EDC. This sounds hypocritical and the equivalent of biting the hand that feeds. I was on the IDC when that person bought that property. He also says the EDC is no longer needed because he is reported saying that Northlake is at build-out. If that is so, why is the city selling property in Northlake? All one needs to do is drive around Northlake and see that it is not at build-out. Apparently that candidate is an anti-tax everything individual who is not above taking a benefit when it is in his own best interest, but do not give a similar benefit to anyone else. Again, I am Tom England, I live at 607 Volle Drive, and I am not running currently for any office. Thank you very much.
This evening is Mr. Uri Rubal.
Oh gosh, how do you follow Tom? My name is Bernie Rubal, just lived up the road from Tom, and basically I've been here for almost a year and a half, maybe presenting in front of this council, so I'm not sure if he's referring to me or not. But in any case, there are a couple of issues before the council. And one of these issues is, again, how best to prioritize funds. At the last council meeting, we heard three what I'll call is business suitors who presented a need for a $30 million bond issue, which we all believe that there's needs for infrastructure improvements. However, one of the problems that I have with that presentation was that the cart was put before the horse. At the end of the council meeting, Randy then was directed to come up with the plan for spending that $30 million. That seems like the need should be there before you ask for the money or go for the money. That seems like it would be prudent. Besides that, there are more infrastructure needs that the city has put off for 40 years, which includes sewers. At the last council meeting or the one before that, there was an emergency request to pay for sewage systems that are ruptured. Well, you have now access, or pretty soon Randy will provide access to a sewer survey for the entire city. Please consider that whenever you consider grandiose bond issues. And with regard to bonds, $30 million request is coming up, okay? And don't forget, those three suitors that came here are making money off of every dollar that you spend in bond issues, so that beside the point. But we're saying critical infrastructure. And again, I pointed out over 20 years, including the last 2 years that I still do not have budgets for, the official audits, the golf course has consumed $7 million of taxpayer money to subsidize every round of golf, every drink at the bar, and every wedding. So that's $7 million. The Economic Development Board does a good job in some areas, but in some areas, they have spent money and torn down buildings within several years. Okay, so there's some discordance there. There are 2 businesses that got $1 million from the Economic Development Board. Okay, so basically just put priorities. If the priorities are infrastructure, make it infrastructure. I have 7 minutes. The last big item is, again, I thank Mr. Maxwell and all members of council. However, this is a little bit tricky because I'm asking the council to consider instituting term limits for council and the mayor. Basically, it's a sort of a big concept, but please consider that and appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Next individual this evening is Michelle Garcia.
Is it okay for you?
Yes.
Hi everyone, my name is Michelle Garcia and I am currently a candidate for the Justice of the Peace Precinct 4 off of Rigsby and WW which Universal City does fall within this precinct. A little bit about myself, I am a lifelong resident of Universal City, a graduate of Clements High School.
Ma'am, you need to speak to us.
Oh, I'm sorry.
They'll hear you.
Oh, I'm sorry. A graduate of Clements High School and graduated from Our Lady of the Lake University with a degree in psychology and a minor in criminal justice. I have been working at the Justice of the Peace for over 15 years. I am certified both in civil and in criminal with the Texas Justice Training Center. And what I'm wanting to let everybody know is we did make the runoff. Early voting is May 16th through the 20th, and election day is May 24th. I do have one person in the runoff against me. Her name is Yolanda Cunha-Uresti. A little bit about JP4. The court is more of a civil court. We deal with evictions, small claims, debt claims, and a little bit of traffic. So my 2 points in my campaign is that I'm wanting to work side by side with legal aid to have legal representation on the premises during working hours to help the constituents fill out forms and answer basic legal questions. Right now, that is our #1 problem at the JP court, is people not knowing how to properly fill out forms. It's not something people do on a day-to-day basis. So we are looking to have help on the premises free of charge. Our next item that we're looking to address is to have an after-hours traffic docket. This will allow more people to attend court via Zoom in the comfort of their own home due to COVID being an issue still in today's society, but also people working 8 to 5 jobs. You miss work, you don't make money, you can't pay your ticket. So with all this technology that we have available, there is no reason why we shouldn't be able to accommodate people. Also, I do want to let everybody know that our jurisdiction runs all the way from 410 in Roosevelt, all the way to Universal City, Elmendorf, St. Hedwig, Atkins, everything, the east side, everything in between. So our other main goal at this campaign is to bring the resources back to the community. We're looking to work side by side with the domestic violence resources, rental assistance programs, child care programs, as well as counseling for the children and the adolescents. We do realize that these programs are available downtown, but also a lot of times people are relying on public transportation, or it's just a hassle to get downtown to utilize these programs. So we're looking to bring them back to the community so therefore they can be utilized more properly and more efficiently. Again, I just want to thank y'all very much for allowing me the opportunity to speak. If you would like a card, I do have one available, and I am outside if anybody wants to speak with me. But again, thank y'all guys so much for allowing me to speak. My name is Michelle Garcia, and the runoff again is May 16th through the 20th, and election day is May 24th. Thank you guys.
The last individual that's on this evening is Mr. Stephen Buck.
Mr. Rubel, I'll show you how you can follow Tom England. Good evening, Mr. Mayor.
That's exactly how you do it.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council members, City Manager, and dedicated staff who do amazing work on behalf of the residents of this great city. Thank you to all of you. My name is Stephen Buck. I live at 8603 Phoenix Avenue. I'm going to go a little bit out of order for the agenda for this evening. I want to start with tabs B and E, adoption of the fire building and other codes. I spoke at 2 city council meetings ago and asked you guys to take a breather and go through all the codes kind of line by line and see how they would have an impact to the citizens. for putting it off and doing all of that. I am sincerely grateful to all of you. To whomever directed it or encouraged it or took the initiative, I applaud the removal of some of those codes that would have prevented water heaters in attics and hot boxes and sprinkler backflow preventers being above the ground. Thank you very much for all of that. Again, on behalf of all the residents, we're grateful. I absolutely support having the basic standards of code safety. I understand why they have them, why we are updating it, and I support that. So thank you for your time. To tab B for tonight, I understand from the agenda packet that tab B regarding the thoroughfare and roundabout plans adjacent to Kitty Hawk for the larger North Lake Business District is only authorizing as a first reading the development of plans, not for beginning construction. If that's correct, I hope that'll come out in the course of the discussions tonight, just to clarify whether this is for development of plans or for beginning the actual construction. By contrast, tab C, it appears the council will be authorizing the actual construction of medians and right turn lanes at the intersections of Pat Booker and 1604, as well as medians and turn lanes and sidewalk improvements along Pat Booker and the Aviation District. I hope that that comes out tonight also in the discussion, so that that's for the actual construction to begin this evening. Finally, not addressing a single council member individually, but I will address the entire council when I draw warranted attention to Mr. Maxwell and his 12 years of service to this city as a council member. Tonight is his last full meeting before he steps down from that seat into well-deserved retirement from his regular work and now from council. Mr. Maxwell has done much to further the best interests of this city, and he will be missed, but I suspect we've not seen the last of his involvement in this great city. You still have about 45 minutes left in early voting for this evening if you want to get down to the library and you've not already done so. Other than tonight, your last chance to vote is on Saturday. The polls will be closing, I believe, at 8 o'clock on Saturday. Thank you for your time and consideration, everybody. I am sincerely grateful, and I wish everybody a pleasant evening. Good night.
Okay, these were all the individuals that signed up to speak this evening. Was there anyone else that wanted to address council that didn't have a chance to fill out this form? Yes, ma'am. Please give us your name and address for the record.
My name's Ina Epson. My address is 8323 Delphian Drive, off of Athenian and Oak Meadow. And I had the pleasure of meeting him a couple times, not knowing he was part of city council. The other day we were selling, well, about two weeks ago, we were selling signs at Foot Doctors, and this gentleman walks up to me and says, "Thank you for your job well done, for being a volunteer, helping with the police department and everything else." Still not knowing who this gentleman is. Brain fart. Saw it on Universal City's page where it was his last night. I've already texted you, but again, I want to say thank you. Thank you for recognizing volunteers and what they do for the city. And thank you for as much as you've done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for all of your participation. It's very valuable information for us. And I tell you, as we've said many times, that your comments do make a difference. And we have made many changes to some of the directions we've been going because we've heard from you citizens. And I really appreciate your participation. So let's move on now to our business for this evening. Our first one, I think, is near and dear to everyone's heart. It's a no tab. It's going to be a presentation by the Bexar County Appraisal District, and Kim will introduce our speaker. And I'm just really pleased that he's been able to join us this evening to share some information with you. Kim?
Thank you, Mayor, Council, and all of our residents who chose to join us this evening. I just want to, before I introduce him, I want to let everybody know that we are recording this, and we will actually have it out on our Facebook page tomorrow, so people who weren't here or couldn't make it this evening can hear Mr. Amasqueta's presentation at their leisure. So this is Michael Amasqueta. He is the Chief Appraiser for the Bexar County Appraisal District. And as you know, everybody's received their evaluation reports, and there was this collective sucking sound as we all drew our breath in when we saw the appraisal values on our properties. So he's here, he's going to talk a little bit about that tonight. And also, as you know, we passed a tax freeze last year. The council did, thank you. And the information that originally went out was incorrect, and he and his staff have worked greatly with our staff to get the proper information out. So we're going to address that this evening as well. So I will turn it over to Michael.
Michael, thank you for joining us this evening.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council, for having me here. It's really wonderful seeing democracy work with mixed ideas from people of the community at large. The over 65 and disabled persons tax freeze, I guess back after the November election of last year, we received what we thought was a communication that this was going to be implemented for 2022, not realizing it was actually a referendum, which is how basically all of them in San Antonio were passed over a decade ago. Nonetheless, after consulting with our council, visiting with staff, we also went ahead and have revised our computer system to reflect, even though your notice didn't have that at the time of printing. If you go look up your account tomorrow on their appraisal district, www.bcad.org, you'll see that the over 65 is on there effective November 2021. You know, sometimes these things happen, but this situation has been cleared up to our satisfaction and under the advice of council, not one, two. So I feel very good about that. It's extremely beneficial for your community simply because the values were ridiculously different last year to this year. So the freeze is actually going to be based on 2021. And I've given you other information. If you have any other questions, other than that, I would simply remind everyone that the protest deadline, I hate that word, is May 16th. If you do have a problem with your values, please get your protest in as soon as possible. I will tell you that through the pandemic, we learned a number of ways to reach more taxpayers throughout Bexar County a lot more effectively than just having people fill out a form and come stand in line. I can make better use of their time letting them tell me when they want to meet with us. And we do that either through Zoom, through WebEx, telephone, email, however they choose to be contacted in English and Spanish or any other language they may need. We look forward to having an opportunity to work with homeowners, particularly individual homeowners. The laws of this state aren't always fair, and I will tell you none could be any less fair than property taxes. The standard is market value when the notices go out, and then there are two ways to protest. Either market, which is you don't believe the house would sell for what it's priced at, or equity, which is simply comparing yourself to your next door neighbors to make sure that they're equally appraised. In a community as uniform as yours, and most of them throughout San Antonio, that's not really a big issue. But if you're the shops at La Pantera, and you get to compare yourself to the forum on value, that's not fair. And oftentimes we find commercial property gets adjusted to the tune of about 50% whenever these properties sell. And it's not just in San Antonio, Universal City, Bexar County, it's throughout the state of Texas. And they work very diligently to preserve that right for their corporate owners. But by the way, I was asked by the governor's office earlier this year how much of our file is owned by not Texas residents commercially. Out of the $275 billion, $42 billion is owned by not Texas corporations. So with that, I would just tell you that my staff is exceedingly interested in visiting with your people of your community, try to be of assistance to them. I've told my staff, I said this last night to the mayor and the council in Windcrest, I've said it to the city council in San Antonio, I've told their county commissioners court, and I'll tell you, my staff is highly motivated because there's nothing more unfair than when somebody gets taxed at one rate and another group of people get taxed at another rate. Part of that is actually by design, state law. And so I will simply tell you that my staff is eager to work with the community. There's not enough residential value I can change to make up for the losses I will experience in commercial property. And with that, I'll ask any questions.
Okay, let me open it up to council. Are there any specific questions? I think there was a lot of shock by almost everybody that received their appraisal value, that went up pretty dramatically, probably so much more than we've ever been used to. That is because the values have completely gone up that much in 1 year?
I think what people probably know, I've been in my home in Bear County. I've been the chief for 19 years. I won't be too much further behind you. I signed my last contract on purpose last December. And so I can tell you that it's not a week goes by because people buy our data or they pillage our data. And when I say people, they're not really people. They're more like, well, I can't really say that word. Bottom feeders, we'll leave it bottom feeders, that are looking for people that, you know, haven't moved or out of their home in the last 7 to 10 years. Well, I've been in my home for 18 years. So I get easily 6 to 9 offers on my home, offers to buy. They almost always match Redfin, Realtor.com, or any of the AVNs at the bottom of the screen. I tend to get a number 20,000 above what we appraised it for to 40,000 below what we appraised it for. So they're in the ballpark, it's just not for sale. We see this even more on the west side, the east side, and the south side, which are the last of the affordable communities. And I will say this, we have 100 counties in Texas that are losing population. They're not going to Laredo, folks. Coming to San Antonio, Austin, Dallas, Houston, Fort Worth. San Antonio surpassed Austin for the number of people moving here this last year. When I say San Antonio, I mean our entire community as a whole. And so subsequently, I think we were number 13 in the state, the nation for population growth. Dallas was number 12, and I think Austin was number 16. By comparison, the average value of a home sold at the time we sent notices was $312,000. Our average value of a residence with a homestead was $309,000. 1 month after not even a month after we've sent notices, that value, average value of a home sold, has risen to $326,000. So the rate of increase is slower, but it's still happening even after interest rates have gone up by 2.5 basis points.
So really the demand has really accelerated.
Completely outstripped the supply.
I've heard people have told me in the past that there is a maximum amount that BCAD can increase my property value per year. Is that accurate?
It is accurate, with one caveat. It's not really BCAD, it's appraisal districts in general under the Texas Property Tax Code. Under Section 2301, everyone is to be appraised at 100% of their market value. That's going to happen no matter what. But if you're the owner of a homestead, just a basic general homestead, that puts a 10% cap on your value year over year. So if you happen to be in a $100,000 home last year, I'm going to use numbers I can still do, and it went to $200,000 this year, you're only going to pay tax on 110 this year. So the next year it'll be 121, next year 133, until that cap catches up to your market, where your market comes back down to your cap.
Is that ever retroactive? If you only went at 5% 1 year, but the next year, could you then take it up 15?
No, it's 10% annually, and that's the standard. Well, you scratch my brain about something that's slipping. I'm telling you, I'm not far behind. I'll be 60 this year. I've been doing this job for 28 years. That's 20 different counties. This second handout I gave you shows you the total. On the far column shows you all the value, and then across, you can see where the cap loss is. That's how much value the city is giving up, and the subsequent revenue that you're losing simply because of that cap. It is humongous this year because there's so much growth. Any other questions?
Yes.
I have a procedural question. What is the, and sorry if I'm deviating too far from this, what is the process by which the appraisal districts, all of them, or BCAD specifically, use to determine the value or the property value of our home for taxation?
Okay, so in Texas, the standard is market value. Prior to 1979, you had multiple jurisdictions doing the same appraisal or different appraisals on the same property. In Dare County, that could easily be 6 different values on one property prior to 1979. Under the creation of the tax code and subsequently the appraisal district, the centralized appraisal process was intended to remove the political aspect of having all these different jurisdictions not only set tax rates and budget, but also set the assessed value and pass or not pass an exemption. Subsequently, market value under section 2301 is simply what a hypothetical sale would be on any particular piece of property as of January 1st. That's always our appraisal date. And so it's always going to be market-based, particularly with consumptive value, which is residential property generally sells. While there's a cost to market and an income approach, market tends to yield the most reliable value, and it's what's generally considered the industry standard.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question?
Yes.
So we've seen in the Texas market where people are coming in and they're paying for homes or buying homes over the market rate price. So let's say they buy a house, it's $100,000 and they want it, so they buy it for $150,000. Is that also forcing up the value on a residence property?
Jay Alvey was actually doing this story tonight because there's also a lot of, at 10 o'clock, I believe, there's a lot of corporations in town, and it's private equity money, there's Japanese corporations, there's real estate investment trusts, and they own probably approaching $2 billion of San Antonio single-family dwellings. And so they have actually built and constructed entire subdivisions of single-family homes on the south side for rental period. They are not for sale. They're generating more income now and betting on the 7 to 10-year appreciation, and then they'll flip those houses.
Yes, just one follow-up question, sorry. So, sort of clear to the, and I guess maybe I didn't ask this right. Who is setting the market value?
The market is.
And the market is, I just want to
whoever buys and sells. We had 30-some thousand transactions in Dare County last year.
Okay, so then let me ask this last question, kind of off of that. Are things that I do to my house to improve it a greater factor of increasing the market value of my house, or are the people buying houses around my house for $50,000, $75,000 more than it previously was?
If your improvement is changing out windows or painting your house or adding a new roof, that's general maintenance. That is typically what you find, honestly, in your community. People do that. In my community, people do that. In many communities throughout their county, people don't do that. That is an improvement, but that's not the kind of improvement we're talking about. If you add square footage, if you change the footprint, if you add a pool, if you build a detached garage, something that will consider you, that will definitely trigger you getting a reappraisal notice. This year, because there were so few properties that didn't go up in value, we just sent everybody a notice, almost 740,000, I think. But generally speaking, it's going to be, and that's the other confusing part, and this is absolutely falls at the foot of the Texas legislature, because I can't put anything on the front of that appraisal notice except the values that we've come up with and the exemptions that you've authorized that people have qualified for. Everything else is mandated verbatim in the tax code. So the word improvement generically means this building, could mean the fence on the building across the street if it were an empty lot. It could be a barn in the middle of a field. Any improvement to land. That could be your house. That could be Rolling Oaks Mall. So it is also further complicated because the legislature requires a separate land and improvement value. Nobody sells a house and lot that way. But the cumulative value has to equal what the house would sell for. I try to tell folks, don't worry about your land value, don't worry about your improvement value, look at the total value. That's not what property is selling for in your area, then you definitely need to file a protest.
Thank you.
Mr. Neville, then Mr.
Okay. What do you do, how do you determine the price of the land for a property?
If it's an area that's newly developing and we have land sales, that's obviously the best way to do it. I can tell you that oftentimes we end up dealing, because property doesn't sell a certain price in your community, mostly built out. Most properties sell $250,000, $350,000. That's the price of the house and lot. Nobody says, I want 100,000 for my house and for my lot and 200,000 for my house. It's one total price. So we have to allocate. Back in the day, it used to be like a 4-to-1 or a 5-to-1 ratio. Those numbers are completely out the door. 5 miles down the road in Northwoods, down I-35, we have $500,000 homes on lots being demolished and building mansions. So I don't know what the land value is there. Is it 500,000 plus the cost of demolition plus the re-improvement? So it's very difficult in an area that's pretty much built out. It's just an allocation.
Okay. You just passed an ordinance in the Universal City allowing us to cover 70% of our land. Okay? In my backyard is a 10-foot easement because CPS has a circuit breaker in it.
Right.
I can't build 70% over it. Is that easement taken into effect when you conserve the price of a lot?
That easement is as much an enhancement and as much as it is a deterrent, because without that easement, you wouldn't have the services that are provided by the utilities. And therefore, you wouldn't end up with a
They
house.
could put it outside someplace else.
You could, but that's not how it's done. That's not how this city did it. It's not how San Antonio did it. And so, you know, if you have 100 acres and you have 40 acres that's in the floodplain and unbuilt, 50 acres in one of the watersheds, that's going to have an impact on value.
I wish I had 40 acres.
I'm pretty good at tax bill, and I do.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, you're here, so we can ask these questions. If my neighbor's house has bad plumbing, does that lower the value of my house?
Is it extraneous to the property? Does it have foul odor? Is it?
I don't know. I'm not sure if it has a plumbing issue that would cause their house to deteriorate from the inside.
You know, if it is evident from the outside, it's possible. I will tell you that most times we call that economic obsolescence, which is essentially not really a financial or an economic, but an economic is extraneous to the property. So if you have I hate to use the phrase, but if you have a hoarder next door to you and they have their garage and it's bursting at the seams with all of the junk, that would definitely be a negative. If you had a shopping center there one day and they bulldoze it and it's now a landfill, that's going to be not great. We have had in San Antonio the La Quintetta golf course, not the, I forget which one it is, not the reserve, not the
Where is it?
the harder one. Not the resort course, the other one.
The Palmer one.
Right, the Palmer course. I haven't played it in so long.
Who's trying to tell me?
By the way, I love the golf course. A hell of a lot. They're actually going to develop it for residential on Pecan Valley, Illinois. You know, that's one of the greatest golf courses in the history of the state of Texas. I don't know what the hell they do with it, but they've done nothing. Redevelop part of it for low-income housing, and the rest of it is just overgrown trees.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Mr. Esposito, thank you very much. We have
Last question.
I'm sorry.
Just real quickly, just from your expertise, years ago when I was in the escrow business, we had people coming up for property profiles. Now, it's all in how you do the numbers. Excuse me, somebody come up wanting property profiles because they wanted to put a protest on their taxes.
Sure.
You can get an area and look at all the depressed values and things to drop property values. Of course, if they want to sell, then you can find, so you know, depending on how you do the numbers,
sure.
You can come up with two very different answers. With your expertise, do you suggest that people owning homes go out and possibly do some study and get property profiles on that?
You know, I don't really think of it that way because there's nothing in it for the price of listing. When values go up, all that guarantees me is another year without a vacation. And that's the number one reason I'm going to retire, because I'm tired of listening to my life. It's been 20 years since we've had a summertime vacation. So we'll be doing that soon.
You need to listen to your wife.
The one thing that I would suggest is when you file your protest, on the very bottom where you sign your name, however you protest, check the box. I think we're the only appraisal district in the state of Texas that tells people to do this. Because the law prohibits me from sharing the sales information in your neighborhood that we use to value your property. 15 years ago, if you just called me up and said, Mike, I'd like all the sales in Universal City. I want to see what's going on in my district. I'd just send them to you. I can't do that now. By law, you have to have a pending protest in the current year to receive that data from the appraisal district and the Texas Association of Realtors. That was all they're doing. Now, I want you to understand, I have no animosity towards them, except that they did it for reasons that I don't really understand. We're already months behind the power curve. Our values as of January 1st, we're at May. Values have already changed another 10%. So when you check that evidence box, you're going to get two things from us. You're going to get all the sales that we use to value your property, and you're going to get an equity study that shows your property, 50 properties bigger than yours, 50 properties below yours, so that you can compare like properties to like properties and see how your neighbors are being treated. If there's a huge difference between your house and my house, it could be because there's quite a bit of it here. I have a foundation issue, or maybe you added a pool and I didn't. Those kinds of things should be very easily determined from the stats. And so to that end, I would simply say, protest on time. If you don't do it for any other reason, make sure you do it this year, because this year is a very defining moment. The appraisal district has no responsibility except to reflect what the market is doing. And to that end, we're a non-disclosure state. So I used to have a paid membership to MLS. I got kicked out a dozen years ago, just like every other appraisal district. So, you know, what I do know is this is a year that the state studies my value for school district funding. And they are purchasing, they're forcing San Antonio Board of Realtors to give them multiple listing data. The more districts that the state can fail, the less money they have to pay into the system locally, which will fall right back on the people that are the subject of this property tax. It's not complicated, but they've made it that way, so that a normal, everyday person who doesn't deal with this is very confused. I'm telling you, there's nothing to be intimidated by. My staff is ready to do this. We're ready to do this. This is probably my 25th meeting in the last 2 weeks. I've worked every weekend for the last 3 weeks. I'll be working again. We'll be at San Antonio at SAC downtown with Senator Menendez and Diego Bernal from, I think, 1 to 3:30 on Saturday with another property tax forum. I know we have some on Friday nights, which really has my wife not happy because she enjoys my happy hour and nice dinner. I can't even give her a vacation.
I really appreciate you coming this evening.
Absolutely.
I think it's very informative, and thank you very much. And if we're looking at a reality situation where the values have gone up because the demand is there, and like Ms. Turner said, sometimes people will pay way more than the market value just because they want the house and they're willing to do that, and that changes the value immediately. That's a big
Last thing I
challenge.
want you to know also, Mr. Mayor, is a lot of people think it's California, and there's some of that. There's more people from Austin looking for homes in San Antonio than there are people in San Antonio looking for homes in San Antonio. The average value of a home in Austin today is $668,000. Average. Our values went up 28% countywide. Theirs went up 56%.
Maybe we shouldn't feel so bad, everybody.
No, you should.
No, I mean, obviously that's the situation. We're faced with the reality of it, and thankfully, we have the ability to protest. And again, you said May 16th is the deadline for file a
May
protest.
16th is the deadline to file a protest. I doubt we have any openings before then, but if Kim wants to reach out to us and have us schedule a property tax workshop for the folks that have filed a protest, and I recommend you all do it. We're happy to do it. Tell me where to be and we'll be there.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
Mayor, I hope everyone found that interesting. So I do watch the appraisal district board meetings when they happen. They are monthly meetings, just like we have here. A lot of them are on Zoom, so I would recommend if you want to learn more about your taxes and how they operate as a board, you check in on some of their meetings. I myself, through COVID and through the last legislative session, got a very good understanding of how school property taxes work and how the board is forced to raise taxes so that the state doesn't have to cover the maintenance and operation shortage on all the school districts. So it's a very interesting process.
Good.
Thank you, Mayor.
I really appreciate him coming out to see me. I think it was very helpful and informative for all of us that listened to his presentation. All right, let's move on to tab number B then, which is to discuss and to consider Resolution 937. It's a resolution approving a project of the Universal City Economic Development Corporation. It's authorized by Section 505-158 of the Texas Local Government Code, authorizing certain financial assistance to be used for targeted infrastructure located within the city of Universal City, Texas, and providing an effective date. And this is our first reading this evening, so I believe we have.
Thank you, Mayor. For those of you who don't know, this is Kristen Mueller. She is our Economic Development Corporation Executive Director, and she has been working on several projects with the EDC in order to provide for some new and or redevelopment within the city. And as always, when we look at those things, we need to have engineering plans in place so that we can accommodate traffic flow and general growth through the city. So Kristen's going to go through the next two tabs.
Thank you, Mayor. As Ms. Turner said, this is not new concepts for the EC. These are actually two projects that have been on their to-do list since they considered and worked vision with the Aviation District Master Plan, as well as when we had determined that we were going to develop and sell the 43 acres off of 1604. These two projects in the design and bid phase will be funded by the sales tax revenue bond that the EDC passed back in December of 2020. So the main question I get asked is, why is the EDC funding this project? And really for two parts. One, it is phase one of providing that connectivity that's needed for that new 43-acre development behind Walmart, which we have been accepting RFPs for and will go before you in the next couple of months. We'll see those proposed projects. And then also there is a 2-acre tract, which is that little green square separate from the 43 acres that the city is looking to develop separately. And this project will provide that ingress-egress, a little spur that goes off of that thoroughfare to help make that 2 acres more marketable. Additionally, so here is the scope of the project. The area in the cloud bubbles is the area that is looking to be designed and bidded out in this proposal. Some of the improvements that it includes is median improvements between Quivira and Quail, and that will allow for increased stacking lanes for people turning into Walmart. It will adjust the traffic signal to accommodate the wider turn-in right there in front of Walmart. It will provide the public water extension through the scope of that project down to that last limit, so that whoever comes to develop will be able to pick up that water line there into their development. It will rehab an existing wastewater line in there, which you may be able to see. I don't have a pointer, but it's called out in the drawing. And then to date, Public Works has cash funded about $80,000 of this project, and the EDC is looking to contribute the other approximately $350,000. To answer a question that was brought up in Citizens to be Heard, this is actually just the design and bid of this project, as well as the construction services in the extent that once the project, or if the project is awarded, they will provide kind of like project management, and we'll make sure when the pay apps come in that the work is completed to the pay app and that sort of thing. But it does not include the actual cost of construction. So I'm here to answer any questions, as well as Randy. He's a subject matter expert when it comes to these kinds of projects.
Okay, do we have any, let me go ahead and entertain a motion, and then we'll go ahead with questions.
Move for approval.
Councilmember Shelby, second by Councilmember Maxwell. All right, I'll put it on now for discussion. Any questions of Kim, Kristen, or Randy? Yes.
Thanks, sir. So, traffic circle? No. Is that safer than a stop sign? Is it faster than a stop sign?
It helps with the flow of traffic better, and the engineers looked at it and thought that that would be the best solution for the amount of traffic that we're intending to bring out thoroughfare without the stop that allows for easier flow. The curbs are mountable. I know that was an issue that came up in EDC. So for the people who aren't familiar with driving roundabouts, there is a little bit of leeway there. If they hit it, it will allow for them.
I see really nice striping on that. We're not going to use the same group that's striping in front of, at Pat Booker and 1604.
I got a lot of complaints to them on that.
Okay, don't worry. Thank you.
Maxwell?
Chris, what is the anticipated traffic flow from that circle?
It really depends on the development that comes through and gets approved, but it's always better in the infrastructure world to be proactive instead of reactive. And based off our proposed design that we put out there with multifamily coming in, the commercial off 1604, and providing that kind of cut through from 1604 to Kitty Hawk and Universal City Boulevard, it's just designed to accommodate what that may be. And Randy may have a more technical answer.
Also, when we started working with the engineer in identifying the possible uses, we ran about 4 different scenarios. We ran what would it be if it was all hospital, which has a lot of traffic. What would it be if it was all multifamily? What would it be if it was mixed use? And so regardless of what happens out there, this is what the end result was. Regardless of what happens out there, we're going to have a huge traffic increase. And so this is to provide for that traffic flow, and it should accommodate all the various uses that could come in.
Mr. Shelby?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I like the traffic circle idea. Somebody who's drove and spent over 3 months in the UK, they move very, very well. Once you learn how to drive. Aside from that, and well, at least over here, we're driving on the right side of the road. So learning how to drive on the left side of the road and doing the roundabout. I'll stop dithering here. I heard bypass Kitty Hawk, and I can see how you can access this road and cut through the business park to maybe bypass all of the traffic in the intersection around HEB and Kitty Hawk. Have we designed this with enough space if we have a lot of people that decide, you know what, I don't want to go all the way down to Kitty Hawk, I want to hop off at whatever this road will eventually be called, take the traffic circle, go up, hit the next traffic circle, and hit the light right there, Walmart, and increase the demand on that road on top of everybody. That already has a line of people leaving Walmart on a regular basis. I mean, is that built into this, or do we have an need?
Yeah, people will always figure out how to get somewhere in the shortest route possible. What's hard to see on here is, it is the intention of this road is to get them from the far end to the Walmart, HEB, and all the synergy that's happening there. So I would imagine that people in the Northview, Parkview area will probably come down the back roads to get in there. And so we've allotted for that as well, which is why we're trying, if we can, depending on how the development shapes out, that we have multiple access points. So you see we have Kitty Hawk, Universal City Boulevard, Bird, and 1604, so that people can get in and out. And remembering that where the road is on Bird, we have a development coming in on the other side of Bird as well, and that should line up with their driveway. So whether people are driving or walking or biking, they should be able to get to this area and use the goods and services as well.
Okay, but you kind of asking on that so right now, when I leave Walmart, I turn right. There's never a line you turn right. So we have people bypassing Kitty Hawk. Do we have enough for a queue to turn right there? And I can't see, I'm sorry, it's only...
Go back to the other one, we're actually planning for
What's the scale
right-hand
on that?
turn lanes.
Those are both right-hand turn lanes.
Yes.
Thank you, that answers my question.
And also maybe the caveat being that this is the scope of the project. What you're seeing as the proposed thoroughfare is very conceptual. The RFPs that came in or will come in
The thoroughfare doesn't necessarily match exactly what you're seeing here, so that is all, can all be adjusted depending upon what actually comes in. What we're speaking about specifically is just up to that
Okay, then just one thing. So they understand this is, we're investing in infrastructure, roads, to provide thoroughfare to this property to increase the marketability of this land. The main thing we're trying to accomplish here. Right now, you can't really get to most of this.
Correct, and that 2 acres that we're looking at marketing separately, which,
Okay.
yes.
Thank you.
I know they're not going to call on you. It's just council discussion. You can ask us after the meeting. Anything else?
And what we can do after the meeting, this is the first reading, we'd be glad to talk to you about that after. There has to be 2 readings on this, so if you have a specific question, we'd be glad to entertain it after the meeting. Okay. Mr. Maxwell, and then Ms. Volle.
One last question, comment. Prior to the pandemic, if I remember correctly, about 3 years ago, the average traffic count down 1604 in that area was around 80,000 a day, if I remember correctly.
The area that you're thinking about is actually 1604 and Pat Booker Road, where the access to the forum is. That was 97,000 a day.
It was 97.
Yes, sir, 97. This area was probably a lot higher than that because it could be that some people are actually getting off on Kitty Hawk and splitting. But we can go back to the text dot files and look at the traffic count for this area on 1604.
I think it might be important, because if I remember correctly, during that time frame, it was 97,000, you're correct, it was further down. But the Kitty Hawk exit was from Pat Booker, Kitty Hawk, that was 35,000 alone in that daily count. But that was prior to the pandemic. During the pandemic, as we know, we didn't have that many bicycles around. But we're starting to get that count back up again, so I think it might be important because that whole thing has kind of changed.
Well, the traffic count that we got was pre-pandemic.
Yes, that was all pre-pandemic.
Yes, and so with that, and then the counts going back up, and then the development, yes, we are preparing for traffic. And I know people don't believe me this, but a traffic problem is a good problem, because that means people are coming.
Unless you're attracted to it.
Can we go back to the roundabout? What is a mountable curb?
It means it's slanted so that whenever the car drives, if its wheels go up on it, it can get up on it without hitting the curb. Okay. Right, Randy, there's probably a more description.
You don't floodplain and retaining wall. Is the retaining wall for the floodplain?
You want to answer?
Yeah, go back to the other side. So right there we have a conservancy. Everything that's inside that blue area, you'll see the portion between Kitty Hawk and Walmart. That's a conservancy where we cannot touch it at all, do any improvements, anything like that. So where the roundabout is, as you're coming towards the bigger track, there's a retaining wall that has to go at that head wall right there. So on that head wall is going to secure the roadway for that section right there. And I've heard the roundabout a couple of times, and I just want to let everybody know the reason why we went to a roundabout is you can't have 2 traffic signals that close together. And because everybody turning in with the traffic light and back up on the Kitty Hawk. So that's the reason.
And when people have used the roundabouts in foreign countries, they're actually considered traffic calming devices. And so what happens is when people see a roundabout, if they're paying attention, they'll slow down to make it because it is a little bit nerve-wracking the first few times. It's not something that you can whip around like you can a corner. So hopefully it'll slow everybody down.
Oh, I'm sorry, you have another question?
We're building some new parking spaces at Walmart over on the Universal City Boulevard. Is that because you took some away on the other side?
It is. It's to kind of compensate for them losing the 6 to 8 parking spots on the green spot by the roundabout. So we're just proposing to Walmart that there's some space there that we could add.
That's all, thank you, sir.
Proposed timeline for this budget.
Well, this isn't construction yet. This is just design and bid, and some of the tasks can run concurrently, but probably about a year out would be for when we are ready to bid. And then, I don't know what you would say a construction timeline would be on this.
Yeah, construction like this, probably about 6 months, I would say.
All right, Mr. Shelby, then Mr. Najarian.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. So I need a little bit of a memory refresher so I can ask my question here. When Walmart came in, there was always a concern of semis coming in and delivering, all right, coming up Kitty Hawk, and we put in something in place, and apologize for not remembering what we did to do that, but we did put something in place to stop that from happening, or to, excuse me, help prevent it from happening.
So Kitty Hawk Road is not a designated truck route. That's
Okay.
what you're talking about.
Correct.
Truck route. The Walmart trucks, and for the most part, they do actually come down 1604, make the loop, and go down Bird to Gibbs Sprawl Road, down Universal City Boulevard, and then go into the Walmart on the backside, and then go back out that way. Now, they do have errant trucks that are not under their direct control, like a bread man or a Lay's chip guy, that might not follow that. But the other reason for the drivable curb is, let's say you get somebody with a big vehicle that wants to go through there, they should be able to still make that radius around the roundabout using the drivable curb.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Do we expect these to be used as designated truck roads in?
No.
Okay, so we don't, the goal is to maintain that large vehicle traffic on the designated route. And with these new roads, do we say, how do we designate it to them? How do they know not to use? Do we have signs up?
Yes, there'll be signs placed that no deliveries into that area.
Okay, thank you, that's all I was.
And then also the fire department has indicated to us that that is never a route that they would have taken to get into Walmart. Anyway, there are too many other access points where they have a direct their fire apparatus and the FDC. They wouldn't use that particular area either.
I'm just worried about deliveries. We can keep them the way they're going. Thank you.
Good question. Anybody else? Mr. Najarian?
Yeah, just more of a comment than a question. I've driven a lot of roundabouts too, and they're extremely efficient. If you haven't driven any, we all know at the college, Northeast College, they have a roundabout there that people use. If you haven't seen one before or not sure how it runs, just go into that entrance, and I'm sure they'll be happy for you to drive around a couple of times. And I think people will be with me when you enter to Walmart from Kitty Hawk, that left-hand turn there that's there now is extremely tight and inefficient the way it is now. That this, we don't need more stop signs. I know that the concept of this roundabout in that spot, I believe, is going to make things extremely efficient in that area. So I really like that idea. Thank you. That's all.
Very good. All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All right, let's go for the vote.
Councilmember Shelby?
Aye.
Councilmember Maxwell?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Neville?
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby?
Aye.
Councilmember Najarian?
Aye.
Councilmember Volle?
Aye.
Again, this passes our first reading, so if anything does come up between now and the next meeting where we second reading, you certainly have the time to work with staff and make your comments known as we have to our next meeting. So, very good. Thank you very much. Let's move on now to tab number C, which is discuss and to consider Resolution 938. It's a resolution approving a project of the Universal City Economic Development Corporation is authorized by Section 505-118 of the Texas Local Government Code, authorizing certain financial assistance to be used for targeted infrastructure located within the city of Universal City, Texas, and providing for an effective reading. Again, this is our effective date. This is our first reading on this one. So, Kristen, I think you have this one as well.
Yes, sir, Mayor, thank you. For this project, we'll kind of divide the scope into two separate things. There's the scope that's happening close to 1604, and then the stuff that's happening on the other end of Pat Booker Road. What you're looking at now is where Pat Booker Road meets 1604, and the scope of this project is to add a northbound turn lane from Pat Booker Road to 1604. If you've driven Pat Booker Road during lunchtime or rush hour, the traffic is backed up all the way down past Bahama Bucks, and so this will help alleviate some of that stress of the businesses, make it easier for residents to get in and out, and of course to 1604. It will include that right turn lane as well as median improvements from 1604 down to Athenian. And then on the other end of Pavica Road, to kind of better align ourselves with the Aviation District Master Plan and some of the improvements that we have called out in that, will be to have a raised median between National and Bird, which would restrict cross access on Langley, and then as well as, I think the next one is, a raised median between Bird and Aviation, which would restrict cross access on Wright and Lindburn. It will provide some sidewalk and pedestrian improvements. We're looking at new lighting and basically, why is the EDC participating in this project? It's because it aligns us with that master plan and provides us those traffic calming features and pedestrian amenities that we have called for in the plan to help support that life at night that we're looking for down in that district. The EDC, to complete these tasks, it will cost about $247,000. Again, funded through that sales tax revenue line.
Okay, just as we did with the previous tab, I'm glad to entertain a motion to move for discussion.
Move for approval.
Second. Shelby, Maxwell. Discussion. Specifically, yes, Mr. Neville.
I know, excuse me, I know the brouhaha we went through, we tried to get a median down the middle of Patrick Road, particularly from the police department and fire department, trying to go over those islands in the middle. Have you discussed that with them?
We have, and also because Pavica Road is a state highway, it requires a public hearing and a public comment for the improvements made on this area. So they'll have the forum to do that then.
And also, Mr. Neville, remember about a month ago, we had the discussion on the traffic signal preemption.
Yes.
So that is going to provide the means for not necessarily police, but fire to have a lot more access to this area, which even if they went down there now, the median down there is pretty narrow for them. So the preemptive system should alleviate some of the concerns that they have. They're not having an issue with this particular item.
Businesses?
I'm sorry, say that again. I think there'll be a learning curve, but once people learn the new traffic pattern, I don't think so. But again, those business owners will have the opportunity to make that comment during public comment.
Thank you. Mr. Shelby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What obstacles could we have in front of us for completing this, particularly the right turn lane up at Happler and 1604?
Well, one of the things that we're looking at, there will be probably a possibility that we do get a car right away. So that would be one of our obstacles up there. We've had discussions with TxDOT. They see really no objection to this option, and they know what we're dealing with in the way of traffic. A lot of that is right movement that they want to get to either 35 or 1604 going that direction. That mainly is probably the biggest one right there. The islands would be no issue.
Can you talk about what we're doing with this island in the red now?
Yeah, right now, currently, yes, I can go into that. With the contractor that TxDOT has in place currently, they are in the process of terminating that contract. There's some islands unfilled, which is, these islands are unfilled. They haven't put the pavers in. All these were supposed to be put back with pavers. I've had several discussions. I'm supposed to have another one this week. They've actually had to bring in their crews to do a temporary fix until they can get a new contractor and finish out all these islands underneath the bridge there. But that will enhance, what they're putting in is what we require, because back when we did the enhancer project, we did it's a herringbone pattern, with I forget the color design that we had in there. But it's what was there before is supposed to go back. And so that's one of the holdups in it right now.
Well, and so when you say right away, does that property labeled in blue belong to a private individual, or is that easement that belongs to TxDOT?
So what you're looking at that's in the blue, it's kind of showing everything in the TxDOT right away. But when we actually, there's no straw here.
I'm sorry,
There's no survey to this drawing here.
Okay.
So until we actually get out there and do a physical survey, it may be everything's done in the right way, but until, I'm anticipating we may have to get an easement.
And is there a light pole right there on that cut through? Or a
Traffic
cross?
signal?
There's a
Not on that particular side, not in that corner.
Okay,
There's a ped for pedestrian crosswalk.
okay, that's what I was wondering, okay. Thank you for putting this together so we can get done what we talked to TxDOT about when they first built this years ago. Thank you.
Okay. Any others? Yes, Ms. Volle.
Back to the right turn lane onto 1604. Is that going to make merging harder or maybe easier, or is it going to affect anything? It's hard to merge up there. When you're merging, people are coming from the U-turn place and you're merging with them. It's a lot of traffic right there.
Are you talking about going under 1604 and taking left, or going?
No, turning right from Pat Booker to get to 1604.
I would say it would make it easier. It gets more stacking,
Yeah.
a whole separate lane.
It's kind of hard. Over at Pat Booker Road and 78, also known as Gordon Blake Highway, lots of accidents there. Is this going to help that, or can we do something to help that?
That's what all this is designed here to quit to stop the cross traffic that's going through there. That they want everybody going to a traffic signal intersection. So they want to get all the traffic going there, that way it's controlled. Versus if you've seen it when it's really busy and people trying to squeeze out and allowing people to cut through. And then when they cut through, there's a blind spot, then they get hit from somebody coming on the other side. So that's the reason for doing this, to get everybody going to a signalized intersection for a more safe route that we can.
I'll give you one more question. She just pointed out something I didn't think about. So the whole point of the island is to bring them to a signal intersection.
Right.
If I want to go the other way, I get to the signal intersection, I want to do a U-turn. Are we going to allow U-turns at those? Is TxDOT going to allow U-turns? Or are they going to say no U-turn, you have to turn left, turn in, and then turn back?
How would you do a U-turn at that intersection?
At a light. I mean, did you say that the whole purpose of that island is to bring the traffic to a signal intersection?
So if you go to that, let's see.
If I come out of whatever is that Langley right there?
That is
So Berg, so the island smack dab on the left of that picture, the largest light point. I come out there, I want to turn left, but I can't cross that island and turn left. So I have to go right and go up to the next intersection.
Or you go through the intersection, turn left, and then heading towards National. I don't see.
I'm on the top of the road. I'm sorry, I guess I'm here.
If he's driving south.
Since I'm tall enough, I come out Langley, and I get this, I want to go this way.
You can't.
Right, so I'm going to go right, and then go up here to Berg where there's a light. I still want to go that way. Am I going to do a U-turn? Am I going to be allowed to do a U-turn?
I know, you're going to have to go because not every vehicle can make that U-turn.
Okay, so we're going to have a sign that says no U-turn at that intersection. That's what I was trying to ask.
The fortunate thing about the aviation district is it was built on a grid system. So there are multiple ways to get to every one of those intersections when you're driving around an business district versus Coronado subdivision. I realize it's residential. They have a lot of dead ends and circulars. That's what makes traffic complicated in those areas. Here, because it's on a grid, there's always a way to get around to a light.
I don't have a problem with it. I just wanted to make sure we were thinking about that. So.
Well, in right now, you drive down Kitty Hawk, we have that right now. You got islands with no U-turns.
Yeah, it's TxDOT, so you know, we have to everything that we're doing up here, we have to get TxDOT's blessing on.
Yeah, they're going to definitely have their review of it. They'll be the first ones to put that on there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yes,
As far as our long-range plan for aviation, I've seen down here where it fits in real well. I wouldn't know how you would do a U-turn on some of those roads anyway, but it seems to me that this not only slows the flow of traffic down there, but I'm really impressed with the new sidewalks like we were talking about in the aviation district, where we're going to be wanting to slow down the amount of actual automotive traffic, be able to pick up the walking and the bicycles and make that a meeting area. It looks like there's been a lot of thought put into that for our long-range plan. And not too sure about the mediums, but I do like all these added sidewalks, where they're going and how it's going to really help the traffic in that area. So when somebody brought up businesses, actually, I don't see anything but a benefit for the businesses. Everybody wants to have walking traffic, and that's what we're looking to do. Does that, do those mediums, I guess, do those mediums slow down traffic from going to?
Yes.
They realize they're closer to the car, or they think they're closer to the car next to them. Not really, but they think they are.
Yeah.
The problem that we have is when the traffic does back up in the two lanes, they get in that emergency lane and they just whiz by everybody and get to where they're going. So that's one of the issues that we have currently.
Yeah, I do see that where the turning lane is. That approximately how many cars are that? And it looks like probably about what, 5?
Yeah, I don't know more than that.
More than that? Okay, good. All right, thank you. That's all I have.
All right. If there are no other questions, we do have a motion and a second, so call for the vote.
Councilmember Shelby?
Aye.
Councilmember Maxwell?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Neville?
Aye.
Councilmember Goolsby?
Aye.
Councilmember Najarian?
Aye.
Councilmember Volle?
Aye.
Thank you, Chris. These are much needed improvements. But again, this is the planning stage, so more to come, everybody. But it's trying to help make the traffic flow much more peaceful for everyone. So I've had an unofficial request, and I totally agree with it. It's 8:15, so let's take a quick 5-minute break before we get into the codes. If you need to go to the restrooms are right out there. I see you in 5 minutes.
It's a very hot.
Okay, thank you everyone for your patience. I hope the short break was helpful for all of us. And we'll continue on now to move to the next item, which is tab number D, which is to present and discuss building code updates. And that will be followed by tab E, which is discussion and potential vote on proposed ordinance. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Turner for this next item.
Thank you. Just remind you, if you turn your microphone off during the break, if you would please turn it back on. So as you had suggested, we did break them up. We've already gone through the fire codes, and this evening we can go ahead and go through the building codes. As you'll see in your packet, we did go back and put some reasoning in for you. And so Michael, Jacqueline, and myself, we're here to answer any questions that you might have.
All right, you've had a chance to review these again, everyone. There's quite a few items, and again, the clarification that they did with the fire codes is the same now with the building codes. And anybody would like to have some specific discussion before we move to tab number 8. So I'm leaving that up to you all, because they're ready to answer any questions before we go to the proposed ordinance.
I have some.
Yes, Ms. Volle.
Okay. First off, a water closet is a toilet, and you don't have to have a permit to install a toilet. Correct?
The change you're talking about?
Correct.
Correct. Correct. Okay, thank you. Kind of got my attention because I just want my plumber installed one. Okay, what is city policy in relation to inspections? It's 110.5.
City policy in relation to inspections at this moment is that inspections are called into our inspection hotline. You can call it an inspection before midnight, the day prior to the inspection, and you will receive your inspection the next day unless otherwise requested. Those inspections will be performed during normal business hours. Sometimes they run over depending on the number that we have. The specific wording in accordance with policy is to accommodate any changes in software or proceedings moving forward in the future, but that is our policy at this point.
I've seen I know it's social media, but I have seen on social media complaints that the window is too wide. Sometimes the person has to stay home all day. And also, if you can't make it on time, they don't know that. They haven't gotten a call. And it was on social media, so take that with a grain of salt. But that's kind of what I'm looking for. What if you can't get to somebody? Call them?
Absolutely, we would call them if we couldn't perform their inspection that same day. But we do everything in our power to manage that.
Okay.
And we always ask the contractor when they're calling to leave their inspection message that they provide us with the phone number for the homeowner, because remember, we don't have all the homeowner's information. The contractor usually does. Some owners used to have a house phone, but now they only have cell phone, but we don't know that. So we always prefer when the contractor leaves their information that they leave us the homeowner's phone number. Otherwise, we have no way to get them checked.
So how wide a window are they given?
We do our best to accommodate an AM or PM request, and if it's requested at the time and we are given a valid contact number with the request, we will provide a 30-minute call ahead to kind of give you a heads up that we're on the way. Most of the time that's sufficient. The only time that it runs into a little bit of issue is that if everybody on a list of 32 addresses asks for an AM, that's almost physically impossible for one person to do in the city.
Okay. So you did away with the hot box requirement, I saw. And I'm still trying to figure out why you would want a water heater in the attic.
Can we go back to the hot box?
I'm sorry?
So we did with the hot box notice in this particular document, but the hot box requirement is still there, but it's just not, it's not us reiterating it to the homeowner. Explain to them the whole requirement for the hot box.
So the hot box is required by our plumbing code, and the reason for it is it's in there that you have to provide protection, okay? It has to be, in RPZ, it has to be in a well-heated room. If not, it has to be covered. It just can't be sitting out in the elements and freezing, and that's the reason why we have that in there. And it's in the plumbing code.
Explain what the problem is with that, why it's a requirement, because if there is a leak and it flows into our city's water system, it could contaminate our water.
Yeah, it's there for high hazards, anything that's high hazard, sprinkler system, stuff like that, to protect the water system, and that's what's required. It's supposed to be tested upon installation, and then 1 year thereafter. That's the reason for it. And then the big sign, if y'all just remember this past freeze, we were out there left and right, shutting off water, and a lot of them were unprotected, the RPZs, reduced pressure zone assemblies, and they were the biggest culprit. A lot of businesses and homeowners repairs this last freeze that we had.
And a lot of people don't know what a hot box looks like. So you can see them around, and I always say it looks like a taco shell that you just slip right over it, or it's an envelope. That's the most common looking one. And it's, you know, it's kind of I call it earth green color, so they're not quite so noticeable. But some people don't like those. I priced one at Home Depot, it was $26. And so some people don't like just the green taco envelope looking thing. They want something that really looks fancy. And so they can go out and get one that looks like a fake rock or something else.
I've got the fake rock.
Okay.
Did you take the one from the library? Because somebody took one. I put it there twice, and this
Well, it's aesthetically nice looking. Okay.
Go for it.
Are you done that? Okay, Mr. Shelby.
Thank you. I kind of want to expand on that conversation. So, the sprinkler system at my home was installed many years ago. Back probably right after I moved out of the house. My parents put the sprinkler system in. So, we didn't have a requirement to put that backflow preventer above ground level. So anybody who has that already doesn't really have to worry about any kind of change or impact on them unless they need to have that replaced. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then is there any reason why it needs to, because I've seen them, sometimes they're right in the front yard, but I'm assuming that's a financial decision. You could probably have that moved closer to the house. In fact, I saw one on Spyglass where the property owner has it down right next to their house.
Correct. We don't restrict you to have it on any place on your property. You can put it at any point. It's just a financial decision on your part. Typically, it is cheaper to keep it up by the curb, but ultimately, it's up to the property owner to decide where on the property that's going to be.
And then, what a good example if you do put it, say, next to your house, is it a hot box option? I mean, could you build some type of wood covering, or does it have to be plastic or that wrap, or is it?
So the code allows for hot box or equivalent, and that's in the verbiage in the code. What that allows for is as long as you're meeting the insulation requirements and the specifications that are laid out. The code also allows for something called an approved installation. As defined by code, approved means anything that's approved by either myself or the water purveyor, which would be Randy. So ultimately, we would review that and look at current industry trends and industry standards, and if you meet that, then absolutely that could meet that could be a replacement.
And the last question on this, I mean, and then just to be clear, so the whole purpose of getting above ground level is so that if we lose water pressure in the city, for some reason, water cannot flow back from my sprinklers, from the groundwater that's in my grass with fertilizer or anything else that might be in my grass into the water system.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you. So I just one more question. We're talking about scheduling. I'm glad you brought that up. Which things are we still outsourcing for inspection?
At this point, it could be all of our inspections or none of our inspections. I am but one inspector that's qualified to do the inspection, so some days it just depends on the number or the number of other tasks or plan reviews that we have in the office for me to perform. So it just depends on increased demand for my time in the office on whether or not I perform those inspections.
And how are they following the same kind of rule set that you are of trying to notify the homeowner? And I think that's sort of you try to reach out to the homeowner to let us know you're coming.
From what I understand, they're provided with all of that information, and if they don't reach out to a homeowner, the homeowner doesn't receive a phone call, I would love for them to let me know. That way I can correct our third-party contracted inspection company so that we can make sure that they're following the requirements and the policy that we have laid out as a city.
I was saying, and they're easily identifiable. They're not wearing any type of city badge or anything like that. How do we know? I guess that's my question, is how do I know that they've been contracted out with the city?
That's correct. They will, typically from what I know, the company that they work for, they all wear shirts that have their inspection company logo. Our third-party contracted company is BB Inspections. They'll wear their shirts, and they always have at least an identification badge or their plumbing inspection badge. That is a requirement by law for them to keep that on their person when they perform those inspections. So they usually keep that clipped to their shirt or on their person at some point, but you can always ask to see their identification or, ask, you can call the city and ask if you have an inspection on today or if that company is coming to see you.
Okay. Thank you. I know that's a little off topic, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we're having this discussion about inspections, and I've had several reasons to talk to you about inspections over the past. A lot of questions have come up about, well, Jacqueline's not a licensed plumber, Jacqueline's not a this, Jacqueline's not a that. I would really like for you to explain why you're qualified to be a building code official.
Absolutely. Currently, I hold multiple certifications through the International Code Council. I've been in this business for about 10 years at this point. I study codes for fun. That sounds funny, but I really do. I really enjoy learning about codes. So I am a licensed, the state requires me to be a licensed plumbing inspector. To achieve that, I have to take a test similar to, or almost identical to a master plumber, and I have to acquire at least 500 hours of field time studying under a licensed plumbing inspector that's licensed through the state of Texas. Ultimately, my qualifications, I am a licensed certified building official with the International Code Council, and that one requires me to take a very long, very lengthy test for over all of the code books, all 14 of them, including the administration of the code, the legal aspects of the code, and department management. That is a 3-part test that I take, that you take 3 different modules for. That combination of passing the 3 of them gets you a certified building official title.
Thank you. You and I have had multiple discussions about disagreements in the code. Sure. How many have I won? You can be honest.
I believe, Councilmember, that you haven't won any of them.
So I do want people to understand that Jacqueline and I have a great relationship. Every time she points out that I'm wrong, I find something in the code that says I'm right, and she says, yeah, but you're using the wrong exception. You're using something different. So I do have a lot of confidence in our building code official. I do feel like she's got an incredible head on her shoulders for this, and she does study this for fun because I've interrupted her while she's doing it. I've got a few more, but I'll wait for a little while. Thank you.
No, I think you're still on.
Oh, dang. Always find it. Thank you, sir. So the inspection request, you've covered that. Basically, if you miss it, if you're going to miss it, they're notified. One thing about the inspection request, and I brought it up one time in the past, was basically that if my plumber is failing and fails an inspection, the first thing you find that they fail, it's hard to, basically, I still want a complete inspection. You would still provide a complete inspection.
Absolutely, you paid for your first inspection with your permit fee and with your permit cost. We're going to complete your entire inspection. I'm not going to stop at the door.
Okay, thank you on that one. Lots of clarifications came through in this, but one thing that I'm just asking probably Kim to expound on, maybe for the certificate of occupancy is required for all commercial establishments. Basically, if you have a name change of your business, but it's the same business, I still have to get a certificate of occupancy. Could you please clarify that a little bit more, go into some detail?
You changed your name, and it's not really the same business, is it?
Powers Goolsby Architects to the amazing Goolsby Architects.
So ultimately, the purpose of that is to collect contact information and to ensure that, let's say that you have a manager or you operate as a corporation and you aren't a business within the city, or a business owner that lives in the city or operates in the city, but you have a business within the city and you source it out to a managerial company, and they have regional managers, district managers. Of course, that type of personnel changes hands more often than not. So we just want to make sure for our emergency services personnel that that the contact information for that current manager is up to date. With that, yes, we would like to see that the certificate of occupancy is changed just so that we can update our records and make sure that they're in line and current.
Okay, what all is entailed in the certificate of occupancy?
Sure, so if the certificate of occupancy was issued within the current code cycle, so within the 2015 code cycle or 2021 code cycle, hopefully, we would typically just perform a transfer of that certificate of occupancy at no cost to that business owner. If the previous certificate of occupancy was issued in a prior code, so it was issued under the 12 code or the 9 code, we would perform a building safety walk. That's just to make sure that your typical life safety and property maintenance has been performed. That you've been upkeeping with your building and that you've been maintaining it in a safe manner. That allows us an opportunity to get in there, not disrupt your business hours because that is a scheduled appointment, and it allows you to get your responses from the health official if necessary, the building official, and the fire official all at the same time for us to give you the responses that you need.
Okay, so basically, if a building changes its name, it was built in 2009, and you walk through, if it complied with the 2009 code where I didn't require a certain type of exit device on my door, but the new code does, so do I have to put that new device on?
It depends on how ancient that exit device is and how well maintained it is.
Okay.
If it's still functional and it's still performing in the manner that it was installed to perform, it won't be required to be replaced or exchanged.
Okay, so you're not going to require me to upgrade, or a building owner to upgrade everything in the building to the current codes?
That's correct. No, we're just looking to make sure that that the business is maintained in a safe and health-related manner, safe and sanitary manner, and that the public that's going in there and the employees within that business, if there is an emergency or if there is something egregious, that they can get out in an efficient way.
Fantastic. So that was all those I had. So I've got another one. The building code requires mercantile buildings to have a drinking fountain.
That's correct.
And we are allowing businesses to not have a drinking fountain.
If they perform similar services to a restaurant, as in they already provide water for free in any capacity, we are removing the requirement for a drinking fountain if they provide a sign that says that water is free, just so that the public is aware that it is already offered for free.
Does it have to be 2-inch letters, or? Just play with it, Kathleen, just play. Basically, we're making it easier for mercantile to do business.
Correct, and I guess the best example for that is the QT. QT is a business that is all over the country, and they have a very cookie cutter drinking fountain requirement. They have a very cookie cutter floor plan. It's to maximize their sales and everything within that circumstance. That floor plan does not include a drinking fountain. And because of the language in the code and because of the way that it is read, there's really no wiggle room or interpretation for mercantile uses, which is what QT is, to not be required to have a drinking fountain. I basically had to, siphon this code. So from what they tell me, which I have no backup, but they say that our QT is very unique because it's the only one with a drinking fountain.
But if they built under the 2021 codes, they would not have to put in a drinking fountain if they provided free water, which we all know that they can.
Correct.
So there's some language that gets a little ambiguous that states a public nuisance. While I understand that basically this is talking about when we find a section of a building or there's an issue with a building that might be falling down or is in disrepair, this code gives you teeth to determine what that is. Now, I don't want 40 pages of what is a public nuisance in this. The comment was made, well, if our building code is a bad apple, then that building code official can pick on anybody. We will fire that building code official if that becomes an issue. Is that correct?
Yes.
And to your point, public nuisance is, this definition is in line with the Texas Health and Safety Code. Specifically section 341.011 actually gives a specific definition of public nuisance in accordance with the state code.
Excellent. See, I love how you just knew that off the top of your head, just because you do this for fun. So the other, I have a few more, but I feel like I'm rambling at this point. Jacqueline, that you're answering everything that I've had issues with, that you and I have talked in the past about, and unfortunately for a lot of the people, they're not on our phone calls. So I just want you to know that I thank you for the time that you spent with me answering a lot of my questions regarding this, even before this was part of the code, when I would have issues. So that's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
That's, again, this is discussion. We'll be looking at the proposed ordinance in a minute here. Is there anything else in the discussion side before we move on to tab number E then? Anyone else? Okay, good. Jacqueline, thank you very much. We'll move on to tab number E now, which is to present and discuss ordinance 370-P-2022. It's an ordinance repealing ordinances 103-A-104, 324, 324-A, 405, 405-A-2020, 370-J-2013, 370-K-2014, 370-L-2015, 370-M-2015, 370-N-2015, 370-O-2016, and codified under the city's Code of Ordinances, Part 4, Chapter 4 through 6, Articles 2, 7, and amending Article 1 to adopt various international codes and appendices relating to construction and inspection activities, repealing Part 3, Chapter 3-2, Litter and Weeds in its entirety, establishing penalties thereto, providing for severability and open meeting, and providing an effective date. And this is our first reading. So.
Thank you, Mayor. It is your first reading, so now we are back to where we were 10 weeks ago when we presented this to you. So we hope as a staff that we provided you with sufficient time and information on why these amendments were made. And we just ask that we move forward with the adoption of the code and the amendments that we have before you.
Okay, let me do this. Let me entertain a motion, and then if we have more discussion following, I'll entertain that as well.
Motion to approve.
Second. Councilmember Goolsby, second by Councilmember Shelby. Discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay, so I remember what a couple of my questions were. There's concerns about the fact that this has to go, that our buildings have to go to you for review, and that it also goes to fire and health department and other people. I don't know why that's a concern. I've had to do that everywhere except in the county. I understand how the city works, and that's pretty much how that works. It goes to all the different departments for review. You're kind of a clearinghouse, and away it goes. Is that correct? We're still in that?
That's correct.
Okay. If I wanted to send you electronic copies, can I, or does it have to be 24 by 36 size sheets or larger?
You can absolutely send me electronic copies.
But you will take 24 by 36?
Absolutely.
Okay, so it's up to you. Is it up to the project? Is it totally up to you? Does it have to be
It'll depend on the project, but typically, I can allow for.
I prefer
Sure.
paper copies.
Okay.
Because those are on site. I don't have to have a tablet with me. I love that there are paper copies on site. I do like being able to send you electronics that you can yell at. I'm fine with that. And that's how it seems like our code is written, that you will take the 24 by 36 sheets, and that you will also accept conversations via, electronically.
Absolutely.
When we talk about 4,400 square foot for a residence, that's a magic number.
Okay.
Is it?
I don't know. That's not my code.
Okay.
Fire code is what you're talking about.
Okay, what determines that square footage? Is it occupiable? Is it from doorstep? Is it everything from the walls in?
It's the footprint of the house is what the fire department explained to me last.
My house has a stoop on it, has a porch, covered porch.
That would be clarification from the fire marshal.
Okay, he's not here for us to ask him a question. Okay. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. Thank you, Jacqueline.
Okay, we've had plenty of discussion on this. Lots of work's been done, and Jacqueline has spent many more hours than necessary to get things prepared. And thank you for all the hard work you do. You have one of those jobs that's very, very important, and you don't really get very many thanks for what you do. So I would personally tell you, thank you for what you do. You're doing it for the betterment of our citizens in our community, and that is vitally important to all of us. Okay, so we do have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? All right, let me call for that vote then, please, Chris.
Councilmember Goolsby.
Aye.
Councilmember Shelby.
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Neville.
Aye.
Councilmember Maxwell.
Aye.
Councilmember Najarian.
Aye.
Councilmember Volle.
Aye.
Okay, again, that motion passes. This is our first reading. We do have another one on this, so if something does come up between now and the next time that it is presented for the second reading, certainly we can let staff know, and they can be prepared to answer our questions. All right, very good. That concludes our business this evening. And we do have one item left. It's no tab. And we're going to recognize an individual who will be leaving us. He happens to be sitting to my right now. So let's do this. I'm going to say a couple of things. Then I'm going to present him with an official city award. And then we'll actually turn it over to our city manager, and then we'll have comments from you five, then me, and we will let Mr. Maxwell have the last word at this evening's meeting. But I'll time it. Okay? All right. I had the honor of helping to recognize and congratulate Mr. Maxwell when he retired from civil service after all these years he spent on active duty and civil service. We had it at the VFW, and I'm just going to share with you a few of the comments, not the ones that Ms. Putt made, but the ones that I made. Hers were very good as well. Just a couple of quick things. One thing that I remember that Tom said I think is really classic, and it's I think it would resonate with all of us, is that he says, I really worked hard my whole life and to get a job, and then when I decided to do public service, I spent a lot of time campaigning to be sworn in, so that once I got sworn in, I could be sworn at. That was Tom Maxwell special. Okay. So I said a couple of things also about him. His strategic retirement plan will now be rest, relax, repeat. Okay? So, Tom, age in retirement is an issue of mind over matter, right? If you don't mind, it sure as heck doesn't matter. Okay? Mr. Rogers said this about retirement. Often when you think you're at the end of something, you're at the beginning of something else. And I suspect that that's what's going to happen with Mr. Maxwell. We have not seen the end of him. He's just such a dedicated servant and has served this community so well. And I've had the honor of working, obviously, with Tom for the last 12 years, and it's been pure delight. So I want to leave you, I mentioned this one specific quote from Maya Angelou. People will forget what you said and what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Okay? All right. Enough of that. What I want to do is officially give him the city's token of our appreciation for the phenomenal job he's done for us. Then you can see also up there's a picture that's framed. When our meeting is concluded here, we're going to take that frame down or apart off the glass, and if you want to do a little sign on the outside of that to give your statements to Mr. Maxwell, you're certainly entitled to do that. So, Tom, I think what I'll do is, let's just go down there, I'll present it to you, then we'll come on back up, and we'll conclude our meeting. And the flowers are definitely not for him. They're definitely for Cheryl. You know, it's really tough to say goodbye to someone who's been such a faithful servant. And Tom has been that. And I think all of you that have had the opportunity to know him over the years, he is probably the straightest shooter that you're ever going to meet. I have never met someone who has been more dedicated. If you've been to any of the events that we've had in the last 12 years, he has been at just about 99.9% of them, if not close to 100%. And that's how much he cares for his community. And this is a very small token to just show our appreciation for the city. So Tom, I want to give you this. And again, you get your chance to speak in a little bit. I'm going to give you that last moment. So this will be the official presentation for you. And you can open it up and show everybody if you wish. But it's our chance to say that we have really been blessed to have you serving with us for these past 12 years. And for someone who has basically traveled the globe, this is not too shabby.
Thank you, Mayor.
So Tom, thank you, my buddy. And again, we'll have a chance to, everybody has a chance to do something in a couple of minutes. But again, this picture, what we'll do, the flowers are for your bride, of course. We'll just take this frame off, and if anybody wants to do a little signing on something that happened, you can take a picture of the montage as well. But I don't know, have you seen this yet? Have you walked
No, I haven't seen it.
Ooh, okay. You're in for a treat, buddy. All right, let's go ahead and conclude the regular part of this meeting then, the business session. I'll turn it over to our city manager for her quick comments, and then we'll hear from your members of your council.
Thank you, Mayor. Tom, on behalf of the staff, we'd like to thank you for your service as well. You know, periodically we have people who just like to show up, and we're glad that they've showed up. But then we get someone like you who truly serves and is truly dedicated to not only serving on city council, but to the betterment of the community, and gives themselves and their time and their talent to all of the events and everything that would happen. And you are a shining example of somebody who serves their community. You don't just show up, and we really appreciate that, not only for you, but for your wife as well. And then, to quote the Bible, well done, good and faithful servant. We really appreciate that. And the second thing I wanted to say is, I hate goodbyes, and I don't know why we're saying goodbye to you, because you're really not going anywhere. We still expect you to serve and to show up. So instead of that, from behalf of the staff, we'll just say, see you later. Thank you.
Okay. All right, let's start on my left, and we'll work on it this way, and then I'll conclude, and then turn it over to Mr. Mack. Beverly?
I mainly want to say we will miss your wise words. We'll also miss your wisecracks. He is. He's there. He's always an event before I get there. And when I leave, he's still there. And I know he does serve. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not talking about you yet. I was wondering why we had the police officer out here until I remembered that, the Bexar County Appraisal guy was going to be here, so that now I totally understood why you had the police officer out there. It was scary. Tom, you are what I hope I can achieve one day with volunteering the service. You're kind of that guiding light. You're what I hope that I can be one day. With how people talk about you is what I want to do for this city. I want to be that guy. I love you, man. That's all there is to it. Thank you for being you.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Dick?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chief, that's one thing I can call him Chief, because like myself, he's a retired Air Force Chief Master Sergeant. I outrank him because I had more time serving. my data ranked a lot ruler than his. But there was a thing in the military which we call, you have a pay grade, and for the Chief Master Sergeant, it's at E9. And there are those who say, oh, he's just an E9. But then there's the ones they call Chief. And then there's one they call a chief's chief. That's Tom Maxwell. He's the chief's chief. What he says, he means, and what he means to do, he does. That's what a chief does. His word is a bond. He shows up when necessary. He goes beyond duty to do what has to be done. And he says this is not his last council meeting, because he has one more duty to have to do at the next council meeting, and that's to certify the election, in which he will prove whoever it is who tries to replace it. Well, with any more remarks I have, I'll wait then, Chief.
Thanks, sir.
Paul?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tom, I've known Tom since 2013. Yep. When the Citizens Police Academy, we were getting ready to go out and do some parties for National Night Out, go around, and he saw my name tag that said Paul Najarian, and asked if I knew a guy by the name of John Najarian, and I said, yeah, that happens to be my father. And they've had a long history, my father and Mr. Maxwell, and since that day we met, I had told Tom about wanting to get more involved with the city, and he was very gracious to help me with, along with some other people in this audience tonight, Mr. Tom England. He's been a great mentor, a great friend, and we'll see him everywhere. And again, yes, his wisecracks that they don't get any funnier, but love hearing them. I will see him around at events, and whether I'm reelected or not, I will see you at other city events, because I'm not going anywhere either. And I just appreciate the friendship all these years. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Maxwell, I have enjoyed our deliberation, our disagreements. I've enjoyed the work that we've done here together over the last, for me, the last 7 years. I did get to watch you in action from the audience for over a year. And coming up here, being a newly elected official and not understanding anything, it was always appreciative I was always appreciative to have somebody who I could speak to, ask questions, learn from, and as a guide of how to be a good elected official. Thank you for being that guide, and thank you. I'll shorten the version of Bear said one of these days. I want to be like you when I grow up. And I leave you with one question. Why should you never trust atoms? Because they make up literally everything.
That is true.
I had to leave him with one of those jokes that he gets me with all the time. Thank you.
Thank you, William.
Okay. I just have a couple more quick comments, and then I'll turn it over to Mr. Maxwell for the final words. Okay. Tom, it's been a pleasure. It's been a pure pleasure to see you, work with you, and you have truly made a phenomenal impact on our community because you care. You care about the people. And like Dick said, you're a chief's chief. And I can promise you that the worker bees in this community recognize the chief, because I'm blessed to have two of these chiefs on this council. We are blessed as members of this community. All I can say is remember, retirement is when you stop lying about your age, Tom. You start lying around the house. Okay? So all I want to say to you is, well done, good and faithful servant. We've been blessed to have you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, all right. Are you ready for this? Tom, you've got the floor.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. One of the few times in my life that I'm pretty much speechless. Everything that I had planned to say has escape me, even though I've written it down. I am extremely blessed. I'm extremely humbled by the outpouring and the comments that were made earlier in the evening. The numerous texts and phone calls that I've gotten over the last few weeks, and it has been a total pleasure. Our mayor is a terrific leader. I have served under him for 12 years, and he is a right mix for Universal City. The City Council, Beverly and I have gone back to 1990 when I was still in active duty, and she was at Brooks Air Force Base, and we were under morale, welfare, and recreation programs at those times, and with businesses. And so we're conditioned to servicing people in all aspects. Our motto at the time was from the cradle to the grave. We covered every aspect of military personnel's family, literally from the cradle all the way through last rites with mortuary affairs, which I've had experience with almost every one of those aspects one way or the other. Dick and I go way back because of our being fellow chiefs. Your professionalism has been something that I've fell back on ever since you've been on council, and I take my lead when it comes to anything dealing with building codes and things of that nature, and I really appreciate that. Paula, you taught me an awful lot also. I really, some of the things that are conversations, you changed my opinion or my outlook on some of those. I really appreciate that. IT, anything dealing with finance in there, you ask some of the most direct questions that I think is very effective. They're not, by virtue of the questions, they're actually informative, and they solicit information. So I'm actually learning from you. In 12 years, I have attended, I have been assigned 288 individual meetings. Of that, I think we had 4 meetings over 12 years that were canceled due to non-agenda items. I missed 5 of those meetings. 3 of them I was assigned overseas to at the Middle East. It was one I was deployed and embedded with the Air Force and some of our sandy areas, working with some of the areas with my job with the Air Force, and then 2 I was embedded with the Army and some of the similar locations. Again, it was eye-opening, but it was what we did, and I serviced the troops in that area. And a lot of those troops would like some of the same home items that we have here, just the comforts of home. It taught me a lot. And in my military career, I spent my 6 years and 8 months of isolated remote assignments in my first 10 years of the Air Force. That taught me what some of the creature comforts of life could be. So I missed 2 other meetings. One, I was assigned to Philadelphia for a project, and one, unfortunately, my wife had emergency surgery. And out of that, I think that was a pretty good ratio of attendings of meetings. The number one thing that I want to state is that all of those great words tonight were the result of all the volunteers and the superior staff that we have on our city. This city is run very effectively. When I first took council, we had half the council that really wanted to spend no money whatsoever, wanted no improvement whatsoever, and we had to fight for it, and we had to convince it, and it was a salesman, it was marketing to bring it forward. Since then, we only had a few thousand in the bank to see us forward. I think of 2 or 3 months reserve. Now we're sitting well above that. I think we're sitting at 11, 12 months of reserve. And a lot of that is from effective leadership, frugal buying, and building and expanding for the future, because our customers, our citizens want expansion, they want safety, and they want leadership, and we provided that. The most important aspect, or I should say the most important asset we have, is the volunteers, and we have literally thousands of volunteers. And the Christmas before the pandemic, we had so many volunteers that we would try to honor them. We couldn't get them all in one time, but we had to have it in 2 nights in order to get the entire volunteer force in. That's phenomenal. And I'm going to end it with this. Somebody asked the question earlier this evening how I managed all the different things. I didn't have a job. You know, there's an old saying that if if you do something that you love, it's not really a job. I was fortunate enough to build a career in the Air Force doing things that I really enjoyed, serving people. I ended up in the civilian side of the house, again, serving people in different aspects. This is serving people. As a councilman, my job is to allow the city staff to do their job. I'm not an expert in fire safety, though I used to be a fireman. I'm not an expert in construction. I've built a few patios, but I have to depend upon the experts, and then I ask the question whether it makes the common sense factor, and then we go forward with it. I take the 20,000 residents that we have in Universal City and I listen to them. Tonight we had 50 people at the beginning of this one. That's 50 people. That's more than we've had in a long time. But we still have 20,000 people that we service out there, and so we really need to take what is best for the majority. Sometimes it's not an easy decision to make, and we have to really weigh our own personal needs and wants with what's best for the city. We've had a few disagreements, and sometimes they weren't really, there was actually some good fractures in there between our disagreements. We were far apart, but we're council, and we are adults, and then we move forward at the next meeting, and we don't hold grudges. But anyway, I just want you to know how much I appreciate tonight. I am humbled by all your generosity and all your comments, and I'd love to see all the nice faces out there. And with that, I will still be around, and I still got some volunteers to do. And in 2 weeks, in 2 meetings, I get to utilize the citizens to be heard. Voice my opinion and not the opinion of my constituents. Thank you ever so much.
The meeting is now over, and you may talk to Tom anytime you want. Please autograph that montage there, and he will be proud to take home the flowers to his beautiful wife. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming, and I found it a very productive meeting, and we'll see you very soon.